Hi there. Welcome to Common Ground with Corrine Rios. This episode is about a simple principle. Past behavior is a good indicator of future behavior. When someone has held power, we do not have to guess how they might govern. We can look at the record. Today, I'm going to talk about Gregg Hull's record as mayor of Rio Rancho. Not rumors, not personality, and not political spin. His actual record. What did he do when he had authority? How did he govern? Did he protect people's voice, follow the rules, and bring transparency? Or did his leadership help create the same problems that people are frustrated with today? Because before we hand someone more power, we should ask some serious questions. What does Gregg Hull's record tell us? All right, so today on Common Ground, we should have the same common interest of finding out the truth and facts. It is a fact that I have salt and pepper hair. Sometimes I don't like it, but still it's the truth. The sky looks blue. That is a truth. You may not like it, but nonetheless, it is a truth. And that's what we're here today about. Uncovering some truth that may not seem so nice. Because in the political arena, what I'm going to get, and I'm anticipating, is that I'm attacking Gregg Hull, negative campaigning. But if you are a Christian believer, if you are a believer, you know, and you should be taught that you need to seek the truth. And in the Bible, it actually says, speak the truth in love. So that's what I'm trying to do so that you have more information about our gubernatorial candidates when you go to the ballot box. All right, so I first want to start with Gregg Hull has been the mayor, was the previous mayor. He's not a mayor anymore, of Rio Rancho for 12 years, the longest serving mayor in Rio Rancho. So he's got a big record. He's got a long record. And this is what I'm going to bring out to light today. I want you to first know that he is, as a Republican. And in 2020, Mayor Gregg Hull appointed a Democrat to the city council. That's right. Did you know that? In 2020, he appointed Clarissa Culbreth for District 5 to the city council. Ask yourself, would you like it if a Republican president appointed Democrats to his cabinet? I wouldn't. Because you want like-minded people on your cabinet because you're like-minded. And Gregg Hull didn't do that. You have to ask yourself why. You know, and it was interesting. I asked my friend, why do you think he did that? And she told me that, I think he needs to appoint a Democrat and then a Republican and then a Democrat and then a Republican if he gets that chance. And then I did all this research and nowhere does it say he has to do that. So he does not have to do that, but he did it anyway. Okay, let me go on. Baby boxes. In 2022, and I think it was 2022 or the 2023 legislature, our governor signed into law that we were going to earmark money for each county to get a baby box. And I think it was like $33,000 for each county to get a baby box, a safe haven baby box. John Wickersham in Espanola got the first one out there. I think it was even before he got money from the New Mexico state legislature. And so my friend here in Rio Rancho, she is a pro-life activist, and she talked to John Wickersham, and John Wickersham directed her to the Safe Haven baby boxes. She called the Safe Haven baby boxes and they told her how to get the process started. They told her that she needed to get a sponsor. She needed to get somebody on the city council to sponsor the baby box ordinance because it was going to be an ordinance. So she reached out to Mayor Hull and gave him all the information. She also reached out to the fire chief back then, who I believe was DeFlippo. And by all early indications, Suzanne was left with the impression that Gregg Hull wanted to sponsor this and wanted a baby box in Rio Rancho. And so she does all the legwork. I think at some point they were even talking about what fire station to put the baby box in. And then she hadn't heard back from Mayor Hull, and she sees him at a Republican event at one of the churches here, and she asked him, and she said, hey, where are we with the baby box? And Gregg Hull said to her, well, we think it's a liability. And my friend was absolutely shocked, absolutely just shocked, because up until that point, months before, he was telling her and giving her direction that this was going to happen. So she was very, very upset, very like just disappointed and couldn't understand. And she comes to me and she says, what is this we thought? Who is we? Somebody within the city halls decided that it was going to be a liability. Now, I will say that elected officials don't have to sponsor any proposed ordinances that the citizens bring to them. That is obvious, right? I can go to my city councilor and ask, I'd like an ordinance for blah, blah, blah. And they can say, well, I don't want to sponsor that. That's their choice. But here's the deal. When you say you are pro-life and you have the opportunity to bring a baby box to your city and you don't do it, I question your pro-life. I question your pro-lifeness. And that's what you need to understand. He did not fight for those baby boxes. He did not fight. Next thing I want to talk about is water rate increases. In Rio Rancho, we don't have a separate water authority like in Albuquerque. Albuquerque, you have the water authority, and that's separate from the city government, right? So in Albuquerque, if there's a water rate increase, that comes from the water authority, and you can't blame the city councilors, from my understanding, because it's separate. They're not going to vote in it. In Rio Rancho, we still have our elected officials, our city councilors, voting on water rate increases, okay? And so in 2025, Ordinance 07, Ordinance amending Chapter 51, Water and Wastewater Rules and Rates. And this raised our rates. And I don't know if this was the first reading or the second reading. I think it was just the first reading, I think. But Mayor Hull voted for that. He voted for water rate increases for 5 years. It's just not a one-time water rate increase. Every year from 2025 all the way to 2029, every single Rio Rancho resident is going to get a water rate increase. Did you know that? Now, as a conservative Republican, I wouldn't have voted for that. I would not have voted for that because in 2019, every year since 2019, we have had automatic water rate increases. Every single year. Something's not right if we're having to constantly be raising rates. And he voted for it. He didn't have to, which was interesting, because the mayor only votes when there's a tie or there's 4 or less city councilors. And we had 4 councilors that for this first reading, we had 4 councilors and 2 were absent. So he didn't even have to vote, but he did. And here it is. The motion carried by a vote of 5-4-0 against. Yes, Gregory Hull, Deb Dabson, Jeremy Lilentine, Paul Weimer, Nicole List. And there were 2 absent, Bob Tyler and Clarissa Culbreth. He voted for increased water rates for the next 5 years. So in 2029, out of all of those 5 years, our water is going to go up almost 15.9%. That's a lot, folks. That is a lot. And he voted for it. I just want you to know. So when he says he wants to get in there and cut the spending and cut the taxes, his record doesn't really show that. Also, when me and my friends filed the lawsuit, did I tell you about that? I don't even remember. But we filed a lawsuit in 2025 because the city of Rio Rancho was not following its rules of procedure. And it says that the sponsor's name and elected official's name will be on the piece of legislation, and the elected official sponsor will present at every meeting. Rio Rancho has not had any elected official sponsoring, taking responsibility for ordinances for I'm going to say at least a decade. When we brought this to the attention, the city, to the city, they didn't even want to talk about it. They shut me down, and so I had no recourse but to take it to federal court, fighting for 14th Amendment due process. That took a long time. The judge came back recently and said that that's not the jurisdiction. We should be doing it in state court because it didn't rise to the level of a due process violation. He didn't say that we were wrong, right? He said that it wasn't in the proper jurisdiction venue. So during all of that, one of the plaintiffs found out that they prematurely charged us. Now, let me backtrack. Every year from 2020 all the way to 2029, we have gotten and will get a water rate increase every July 1st. Okay? My water bill cycle is from typically June 8th to July 8th. Now, you guys know how proration works. If the due rate goes into effect July 1st, I should only get billed 8 days at the new rate, right? That happens for electricity, for gas, for rent, for property taxes, even when you buy a house and they have to prorate it. But the city didn't do that. Instead of just charging me 8 days, they charged me full 30 days, the full billing cycle. And when we told the city, and when I alerted the city and told them, they admitted the mistake, and the mistake was going back until 2020. They admitted it. And they said we would get a water rate credit. Now, I got mine for July 2025. But they haven't credited 40,000 accounts. Mayor Hull knew about this because I emailed him. I CC'd him on the email that I am talking with Steve Gallegos from the Utilities Department. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, I asked for a follow-up from Steve Gallegos, and he says to me, wow, we're still waiting for the vendor. Where is the leadership? Where was the leadership and Gregg Hull standing up and saying something about this to the residents of Rio Rancho? He was quiet. He didn't say a word. Is that the kind of leadership you want? He didn't stand up for us residents, still hasn't stand up for us residents. Is that the kind of leadership you want? You have to ask yourself, past behavior is a good indicator of present. Past behavior is a good indicator of future behavior. We are supposed to have a lodgers tax advisory board that is mandated by the state. And it says the mayor shall appoint a lodgers tax advisory board. That way you get some representation on if the city or any cities, all the cities are supposed to have a lodgers tax advisory board. When you want to increase lodgers tax, if you want to pass some new lodgers tax on short-term rentals, say, you have to get input from the lodgers tax advisory board. There's a purpose that it's in there. And it has not been fully appointed, and it's not a full functioning 5-member, come on, Corrine, a 5-member board. And they've been, in 2025, I think there were only 3 members on there, and they passed lodgers tax. There's a reason why the state wants you to do that. The intention is so that you get input from your boards, which are comprised of residents, imagining from the this one is comprised of people from the hotel industry, and that kind of thing, so that you get some good advisement, so that the city council gets some good advisement. It has not been a fully functioning. So where's the accountability? And I will tell you that the city manager knew, because I alerted him to it. So did Gregg Hull know? I'm pretty sure he knew. Where was he with the leadership? Where was he as getting this lodger's tax fully staffed in compliance with New Mexico law? I don't know how you can say you want accountability if you're not even doing it in your own city. The next thing I want to talk about is, what time is it? Okay, I want to talk about notice in the agenda. For the city council meetings, there is an agenda. And they put it online so that we can see what's on the agenda. And if we want to go to the meeting or participate, that's what we can do. On April 10th, 2025, they had the agenda. And on the agenda, on the very bottom, it's like the last item of every single agenda is the city manager's report. And usually the city manager's report, he usually will come out and say, Matt Geisel will come out and say, we have an event, we're having Sunday is Fun Day. Oh, the parade is on this day. Oh, it's just general information. But on April 10th, 2025, I was looking at the meeting minutes. And the meeting minutes indicated that during the city manager's report, Deputy City Manager Peter Wells did a presentation on election change. That would later become Ordinance 13. And actually, then I had to go because it was like only 15 lines in the minutes. So then I went to the video for April 10th, 2025. And I'm telling you this so you can go and check for yourself. And I watched the video, and it was like almost 20 to 30 minute presentation with a bunch of slides, a PowerPoint presentation. Those slides were not in the agenda packet. No resident knew that he was going to do this 30, 40 minute presentation of this ordinance. And then when the first reading of this ordinance appeared, it was April 24th, 2 weeks later. And in the notes, it said something to the effect, oh, well, we're going to give a brief summary because we already did the presentation on April 10th. And I'm thinking, nobody knew that you were going to do a presentation on April 10th. It's like you hid it almost. So where was the accountability there? We have a right to know what's on the agenda. And if it's not on the agenda, it shouldn't be discussed. That is not open and transparent government. And if Hull can't do that now and understand the conflict of interest or understand the violation, how is he going to do that at the state level? I don't understand that. That blows my mind. And they did it a second time. Matt Geisel did it a second time in December of 2025 in the city manager's report. He was responding to the Rio Rancho Observer when they came out and said some things about the city managers and transparency and getting information. Matt Geisel went on the city manager's report and just tried to defend and talk about IPRA requests, but it wasn't on the agenda. That's the point, folks. That's the point. He's not transparent. He can sit here and say he wants transparency and accountability, but he hasn't done it in Rio Rancho. Jobs. I heard him say, oh yeah, I'm going to bring jobs and economic growth to New Mexico. Where are the jobs in Rio Rancho? We have, if you live in Rio Rancho, we have a heck of a whole lot of car washes this last couple of years, chicken places, and a bunch of banks. Where is the big businesses? We don't have them here in Rio Rancho. The last big business that came was in the 1980s, Intel, and then Rust Medical Hospital. The biggest employers, Intel, Rust, Rio Rancho Public Schools, and the city of Rio Rancho. Where is the big industry that he says he's going to bring to New Mexico? It's not here. And even the chamber, the Rio Rancho Chamber of Commerce, in a recent article, when they went to go talk to the county commissioner, says that we have so much GRT leakage. That's gross receipts tax leakage. And that means simply is that people who live in Rio Rancho travel to other cities to go work. And when they are in other cities to work, they go eat lunch there, they go eat breakfast there, they may stop by in Albuquerque and go shopping for grocery. Well, now we don't have tax on groceries. Retail stores. Because we don't have any good economic jobs here in Rio Rancho, all of that tax money is leaving Rio Rancho. Where are the jobs? If you don't have a record of bringing jobs someplace, how do we even think you're going to do that at the state level? And I know there's just excuse after excuse after excuse. Well, 12 years, the excuses run out. The excuses absolutely have to run out at some point. That's what I know. That is what's happening here in Rio Rancho. You may not like it. You may think I'm attacking Gregg Hull, but the truth is the truth. And sometimes the truth is an ugly truth. But I want you to know more of the truth before you go to the ballot box. Because the worst thing that happens in politics is the deception or the spinning it so it makes it sound right. So anyway, I hope I've helped you a little bit understand past behavior is a pretty good indicator of future behavior. And this is what I know. This is what I've experienced. So before you get to the ballot box, maybe you want to do a little bit more digging about your candidate. All right, let's have in common facts. Bye.